Three, two, one, and we are live. Good morning, everyone. If I'm catching you live or if you're going to be catching the replay, I'm Chris Trammell. I'm the creator, developer, and head coach of the Author Launchpad, a program I created where I help authors, speakers, and nonfiction, authors, speakers, and experts to be able to package, market, and monetize their expertise in 90 days. It's been one of the most fulfilling projects, businesses I've ever started. Right now, I'm just kind of getting used to the energy that I have today because I got two great speakers coming on today, and I'm just overwhelmed with what I was able to do this past week. If you've been following these live streams, I've done them both here in LinkedIn. I've also been doing them over in Facebook inside of our curated community, the Author Launchpad, which was designed specifically for nonfiction authors that have that personal development book, the self-development book, a leadership book, something where you want to make an impact and a difference on this planet with an audience inside of an industry, and you want to bring it out to the world. Well, that's exactly why I've created this program. It's why I create the communities that I do. It's why I show up to writing conferences and organizations, because I have a message. And my message is this: I know your message, when polished, when practiced, and when passionate about what you want to make, the promise that you want to give, makes a difference in the lives of others. And one of the things that has been most challenging for me to hear as I've worked and listened and gotten closer to that inner process of the author is how much authors, nonfiction authors, but many authors, wait for someone else to say, yeah, it's good, or no, it's not very good. You shouldn't put it out there. And I want to disrupt that conversation. Now, look, I also want to be clear about this. I'm not saying that you should not lack the integrity to the process of being a well-written author, of having concise, of having coherent, cogent thoughts articulated on paper. That should be there. That is what good literature does. However, you do not have to wait for someone else to say, yeah, good job, kid. You're in the cool kids club now. No, there's no velvet rope when it comes to you, your expertise, your passion, your promise, and the difference you want to make on this planet. No velvet rope. The only thing that stops you from being able to do that inside of these past 5 days, if you've heard anything, the only thing that stops you is you. So with that being said, sometimes I take off, and many of you know that I was a track and field coach for 25 years. We'll talk about that in just a few moments. I come out of the blocks, right? Like, I just come out of the blocks. I'm excited. Yesterday, I was with Brendan Burchard, one of my mentor coaches, a full day here in Los Angeles, talking about high performance and what it's going to take to have that mindset to make a difference through the rest of 2023 and moving us into 2024. And I'm just fired up right now. And I'm fired up because I want you to know those podium moments in your life are absolutely possible. And you need a team. You need someone to guide you there. You need people on your team to help you develop that process. Whatever it is, you need people around you. Get out of the silo. Get out of the silo and get out of this world of the lone wolf. As someone who taught biology for 15 years and studied evolutionary biology since 1991, let me tell you this: there's no lone wolf that ever survives on its own. It is the strength of the pack. It is the strength of the group. The word lone wolf has been romanticized, that somehow, some way, doing things on my own is the way to do it. No. The way to do things is get in conversation, get out to your network, start to use the people that you know are championing you onto your highest purpose. They're going to help your commitment. They're going to elevate your conviction. That's what I want you to focus on. So today on this bonus session, you're going to get some really great reviews of what we've done this week, and also as well coming on at 10:30. That's 10:30. We're also going to have Jacob McGill of 80/20 Media. He's going to be coming on talking about why he's so masterful with processes, why those make a difference to have a good, clean process, a system, a way of being able to connect to your audience on a reliable basis. So I'm just super excited to be able to give you the highlights from this week. And then when Jacob comes on, we're going to bring him in so you could listen to that mastery and what's possible for you, that once you have the basics of your thought leader, expert, author business, we turn up the levels. We turn up the volume of traffic. But don't go worry about all those things until after you've got some fundamentals in place. So one of the things I always ask my clients to do, and I'm already 6 minutes in, is check that where you want to be is actually where you are at. So what do I mean by that? I want to be live inside of the author Launchpad. So I'm going to my communities right now. There's Chris Trammell Coaching. If you'd like to work with me or you like to just follow me, Chris Trammell Coaching is one of my communities. It is free for you to join. And there it is right there. Let me make sure the sound sounds good. Or you like to just follow me, Chris Trammell Coaching is perfect. One of my community. So that's a way, if your tech team isn't available or you're going live yourself, you just want to check. Like the other day I went live and half of it was on mute. I got excited. I took off and I forgot to hit unmute. So now I remember to check, right? These are the things that you do that allow you to get better over time. You do not come out as an overnight success. You do not come out great on camera. No, you don't, because you probably practiced somewhere else that allowed you to come out and bring that skill set over. Okay. So there's one thing. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy that link and I'm going to move it over to my other platform, which is where I also have a Facebook page. And I remember the difference between having your own profile, having a group, and then having a page. I'm going to put it right here inside of the Author Launchpad. Perfect. Send that one live. And using new technology this week, I'm using StreamYard. And inside of StreamYard, I'm also zooming into YouTube, LinkedIn at this time. If you're watching on LinkedIn, I'm going to go check LinkedIn right now, and into Facebook. So again, part of your journey is being able to use your technology better. I'm also going to do one thing right here. I see that my guest has shown up inside of a Zoom link, and I have to go over and now move that guest over to this location. So watch. And this is what live looks like. Let me move that over right now. Please hold for a technical moment. I know where he's going to be at. I'm going to bring this. I'm going to hit start. And grant me one moment here. When he comes on, I'm just going to ask him, hey, check your email and come on over to the link that I sent for you. And that way I'll be able to update him that way. There we go. So I'm going to put myself on mute for just 1 second. Okay, so I'm back. Let me go ahead and not wrap this up, but I want to kind of start this newly because that was a little bit of a pause. And sometimes technical glitch, people see it as unprofessional. They say, oh, you should have had things together. That's sometimes part of the realm of this perfectionist. Like you can't show up if things aren't perfect. And that's not true at all. It's not even close to being true. Show up, right? Like I sent the email to the guest that's going to be on, and because he also has assistants that needed to make its way up a little bit. Things happen. You don't have to be perfect. I saw a brilliant post today on LinkedIn where it said how we think things should go. And it was a very linear, clean where we are to our goals and our dreams. And then it showed below what it really looks like. And it's all these twists and turns and convolutions to get to where we need to be. And I went and added to that. No, there's also the part where the road's missing and it's blank. And you have to take that leap of faith to be able to go and jump over and be able to make it onto that next step of where you want to be in your goals, in your journey. So it's not linear. It's not perfect. Sometimes you're going to have a little bit of a tech glitch. Keep going. Keep showing up. That's one of the most important things. So thank you for allowing me just to have that moment right there to make sure our guest was taken care of. You always want to make sure your guests are taken care of and that you thank them for everything, the time they set aside to be with you. So in just a few minutes, I am going to bring Jacob on, but I want to take a few moments just to highlight some of the guests that we've had that lead us to these two final bonus sessions today with Jacob McGill and Crystal Hill. Leading up to today, you had the opportunity to go through your workbook. And what I say is to take those ahas that you've experienced and then put them into action items. Because if it's an aha where you're like, oh, I should do that. Oh, that sounds really good. But if you don't put it into a structure that is going to allow you to take action on it, then it never happens. And trust me, as an ENFP, little bit of an ADHD, likes to do a lot of the thought work, a lot of the forward work. I need those structures. I need, like when Jacobs comes on, I need people like Jacob who have the structures almost as a smooth air traffic controller. Planes land, planes blow. Planes land, planes go. I'm the guy who says, everybody come to this party. This is where things want to be. So since I know that's how some of us operate, one of the most important things I want you to do is make sure that you go back to your workbook and you look for those ahas and you write down by when am I going to take action on them. Because if you don't take the action, it just leaves you with more good feels. Good feels are good, but they don't cause the difference. They don't cause transformation over time. Action with the review of action, the refinement of action, and then repeating that action is what's going to cause the transformation, the results, the outcomes that you want over time. So on Monday, we talked about the opportunity. What is it to be part of a community, to have somebody who's going to say, take your expertise, take that knowledge from your book, find the best leading product that comes out of your book that people say, when I read your book, this chapter totally blew my mind, or these chapters were so impactful on me. You should listen to that and then say, great, thank you for sharing that. Write it down and then say, how do I create a masterclass from that? How do I create a workshop from that? And then when you're ready, it's like, how do you create your own signature program from that? Well, that's what I do inside of the Author Launchpad, helping you create your own revenue roadmap, 3 phases, 9 steps, so you can move people through from where they start to where they want to be in 90 days. So that's the opportunity. And inside of this week, I gave you, well, today is going to be 6 different guests, but so far we've had 4 different guests. Catherine Dev on Tuesday, showed up and talked about what it is to create brilliant online courses. She's phenomenal with online courses. And how are you going to be very solution centric? Bring that solution that you have to the audience that is waiting for your solution. We used to do these avatar things like, here's Bob. Bob's 40. Bob has a minivan and 2 cars and looks like those days are done. They're just too diluted because of the internet, because of what the market looks like now. And now it is to help people with the solutions that they're looking for. And Catherine was extraordinary. Go back and look at that Tuesday recording with Catherine Dove. I'll put that link below also as well. Then on Wednesday, we brought in Carrie Bayer. Carrie Bayer, one of my favorite new people I've met, largely because he wrote this very cool book, Star Wars, Yoga, and You. And if any of you have watched me long enough, you know that I am a complete nerd for, where's my Joseph Campbell book? Where's my Joseph Campbell book? It's not here. I started off with Joseph Campbell. I started off with Carl Jung. I was a product of the 80s. I saw heroes on the big screens. When I saw Star Wars, I saw King Arthur. I saw that whole journey. Raiders of the Lost Ark, I saw the hero. Rocky Balboa, I saw the hero. So at the bedrock of all of my programs, I look for, are my clients on their hero journey? Are they confronting what they have to confront? Are they slaying the dragons or befriending the dragons in their lives so they could actually deliver their work out to the world? And Carrie was a phenomenal conversation about what it looks like to really, as his publishing title is called, creating your own heaven on earth. So again, go back to that because he talked about some really great marketing pieces. He talked about how he started at a Unity church. Hey, will you put my book in your bookstore? Sure. Only if you do a workshop with it. Oh, okay. I could do that. You never know how you're going to start, and you never know how simple you need to start to be able to grow and scale up. As one of the most important things that came out of that conversation is don't look for the super agents. Don't look for Walden Books, Borders doesn't even exist anymore, Barnes and Nobles. Like, start small. Grab the 5-pound weight, then the 10-pound weight, then keep moving up the weights. That's how you build your wherewithal, your persistence, and your passion and your promise for making a difference. The next thing we had Thursday, Melissa Ebken came on Thursday where we talked about visibility. How do you increase your visibility? Well, if you're someone like me and you like the gift of gab and you enjoy motivating and inspiring people, you go to events like Brendan Burchard's, like I was at yesterday, and you love being around people, then podcast and being live might be a great thing for you to do. So Melissa talked about how she's grown, and I watched her over the course of 2 years start a podcast course, do the deep work, do the time set aside work to grow her podcast, Pursuing Uncomfortable, because she knew she wanted to write a book. But the best book was only going to come out after she had had all those conversations. And she was able to have them inside of her podcast, Pursuing Uncomfortable. And now she's in the top 5% globally of podcasts because she got started and she trusted it. So that's one of the things that she's going to help me with this year is growing that podcast channel and showing up more often that way. Then yesterday, Friday, one of my favorite people that I've got to meet in this journey of working with authors, nonfiction authors, experts, corporate escapees is Marilyn McLeod. She did a fantastic summit. One of my mentors was on that summit. I came in, I listened, I watched Marilyn. I was blown away by the generosity she gave. And so yesterday she came on and talked about her work with Marshall Goldsmith and the UCLA Business School faculty. and what she was able to do for them, and how her ghostwriting, and not just ghostwriting, but her writing the work and then watching someone else come in and refine it with her, and then putting out this even more elevated, impactful piece. She saw the pathway, and she wanted to take that idea of what she had done with Marshall and some of those others and say, I'm going to write a book about self-publishing. Actually, she said, let me find a book about self-publishing. And there were no books out there for her to find. So what did she do? She saw the opportunity, she created a solution, and she sold her books on how to self-publish. And with that, she grew and grew and grew. And now she has one of the largest networks on LinkedIn for nonfiction authors. So if you've ever been to the nonfiction author group, nonfiction authors and writers on LinkedIn, that is Marilyn McLeod's group. And I had the wonderful opportunity of being able to interview her yesterday. So I actually left Brendan Burchard's event for an hour, found myself Wi-Fi in front of a Starbucks, and made sure I was not going to miss that conversation with her. Now, why do I share that little part right there? Because sometimes you think you can't hold two things together at once. You think it has to look perfect here, and then it has to look perfect there. Sometimes things are going to overlap, and your skill set is to hold them together whole, complete, and perfect. And that's what I did. Say yes to the opportunities. Create the opportunities. And then once you're in them, just give all your energy to that opportunity. It was a wonderful conversation that was also here on LinkedIn and YouTube, Facebook as well. So please find that. Marilyn has some great offers. I will be putting those follow-up links for her offers and extensions to our audience below as well. That brings me to today. And today, our Saturday bonus sessions, kicking it off right out of the gates, coming to us, I believe, Canada still, because he's not traveling just yet, but we're going to hear about how he has created the lifestyle that he wants, is going to be Jacob McGill of 80/20 Media. I got to meet Jacob about 3 months ago. Someone else recommended to me. One of my dear friends, who's also one of his clients, says, hey, you should go check him out. He's got some of those systems and processes that you've been working hard on creating. Inside of the Author Launchpad, there's some very similar processes that Jacob has already figured out. I'm like, I need someone like that that's figured out how to be able to connect to your audience effectively and simply. And you get to be around some people and you really see their genius. So Jacob, I am going to go ahead and bring you on. So let's go here, add to stage, and boom, let's go ahead and unmute your mic. 3, 2, 1, ladies and gentlemen, I have Jacob McGill of 80/20 Media joining us here today. I'm going to be looking for questions inside of the different locations of the chat. But Jacob, please introduce yourself, why 80/20 Media, and what you do for your clients.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. First for
Did I do it? You're mute. What happened here? Why did I lose your sound?
I don't know. My mic is unmuted.
Yeah, let's try. Did you hit unmute on your side?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. Try it again.
Yep. So I'm here.
Okay. All right. I got you now.
Perfect.
Great. Beautiful. Sorry, Jacob. Let's do that again.
Okay.
Jacob McGill, welcome to the Author Launchpad and how to market and monetize your books in 90 days. It is a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for the contribution that you have been to my business journey so far and for the others that I've met inside of your group. But tell me, how did you get started and why 80/20 Media?
Okay. Yeah, perfect. So, yeah, I'll give you the full backstory. I'm a 1%er. Let's start with that. And that's because I got to have my midlife crisis when I was 17. So what I mean by that is I spent the decade of my 20s studying clinical rehabilitation. And I did that because I wasn't really given a choice, right? Or the choice I was given when I left the hospital after airlift, coma, multiple surgeries, all kinds of stuff was settle, like live your life in this condition or change it. And so that put me in an interesting position. The reason I use that 1% is because when I started studying this work, they say that 98% of pain is the site of a compensation pattern, not an injury, or change it. And only 1% is something called a catastrophic failure. And that's just like actually published. It's Dr. Kelly Starrett's PhD thesis that I found that stuff. And he's like one of the founders of CrossFit, pretty smart fellow. So I was put in this position early in life where, again, I was given the motivation to make some pretty significant choices. And I don't want anybody to pretend that it fit inside of the turnaround time of an action movie. You know, this was not an hour and a half of that hero's journey. This was 5 years in the making to even get clear on like, I need to do something about this. And so I stumbled onto that stuff by first following my regular path, which was reading. Like my mother was a librarian, my parents gave me books, and I knew that I could go looking for information in places. And I've always loved books for that. And then I realized at a certain point, I needed to find some teachers. And so that was really kind of one of those crucible moments. And during getting my music degree, I started branching off into health and well-being. And if I fast forward a decade later, I had my 10,000 hours. I was trained in 9 modalities. 3 of them I can train other practitioners. And I kind of moved away from the music stuff into this is what my life looks like, because again, I had that kind of purpose and urgency baked into my situation. So while I was doing that, I, of course, eventually left the employment side of those things and was like, I need to open my own practice. I need to open my own business. And I did. I opened a clinic. I had my own frontage for 6 years. And I was fortunate enough to figure out some things that worked, design a system that was almost 100% reliable. I've canceled almost 20 orthopedic surgeries now in 20 years of practice.
Wow.
And during all of that stuff, as it moved forward, I ended up painting myself into a corner, and I actually started burning out. I was getting doctors as clients, insurance companies and lawyers were sending me people. I had a 3-month waiting list for the last 3 years that I was in clinical practice. And what ended up happening was, actually, to really oversimplify it, dirty money. Just the business was no longer aligned with my purpose and my vision. I thought I was going to go in and change the medical system from the inside out. And I got a pretty good toehold in there. And then it started slipping. And so what I did was, understand that like when something doesn't work, you can't just keep beating your head against the wall and the definition of insanity, those cliches. And so I actually shut the clinic down and took what I thought was going to be a couple months off. I'm like, I'm going to relaunch it online and redesign everything and rebuild everything. And that took a year. It took a year to take the 100-year plan out of clinical practice and put it up on Zoom. It's been there for around a decade now. So I was like an early adopter in the Zoom and in the digital space. I'd built a system that works, so I knew it was reliable, and I'd done a bunch of testing and that kind of stuff. But halfway through that process, I turned to the guy I was working with to digitize everything. And it just dawned on me one day. I'm like, we have something here. Do you want to start a business? And he said yes. And so, having done it before, about 5 days later, 8020.media was launched. Like, we got the domain, we got the paperwork, we got the license. I grabbed an email account and just like, boom. And I set a goal for myself right then and there because of what I learned from the clinic.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I'm going to build this thing on a Chromebook. I'm going to build it in the cloud. And I hadn't really started traveling yet. I'm at 30 countries now, all told.
Wow.
My thought process was like, I want to be able to get off a plane, realize that my luggage has been lost, go to a big box store, buy another Chromebook, and then be back at work in a half an hour. And so I've always had this systems mentality, right? And that came from the healthcare stuff and the multiple modalities, and honestly learning how to let go of what I found was kind of like a religion in terms of the modalities.
Yep.
Right? Like I'd be in one space learning like really high quality Pilates, and like the teachers didn't necessarily support it, but some of the students would be like, this is the only thing that works and that other stuff is crap. Right? And then you go across the street to the osteopathic training and this is the only stuff that's good and that other stuff is crap. And it's like, eventually I figured out that the system, the modality, the practitioner, and the relationship is really the thing that makes all the difference. And not everybody's a fit for everybody else.
Right.
Right. And so those things all influenced me into looking for leverage. Like, how does leverage work? And it took me years to like de-escalate that indoctrination of this way of doing things, that way of doing things, and just look for leverage. But once I did, the healthcare practice became successful. I learned how to apply that into business, and I got that 3-month waiting list for my last 3 years. And that's where the 80-20 actually came from. It's like, look for leverage first. And just to finish, the long response to your question, most people don't understand that the 80-20 rule is just the beginning. There's actually 5 iterations of it. And so like I use 80-20 media as a brand because some people look at it and they're like, I get it, leverage. And other people don't. And that's a filter, because when you actually enter my space and we start talking about how to apply the 80-20 rule to your life, the first level is 80-20. The second level is 84-16. Right? The third level is 92-8. Then you get 98-2. And then there's 99-1 leverage. That's 80-20 to the exponential rule of 5. And that's how you get those hockey stick curves that you see out there that everybody wants, that people are being sold with the ideal of scaling or that kind of stuff. But most are not willing to put in the work to put the foundation in the place. And so that's why the 80-20 rule is kind of like a qualifier for me, for people. If they don't understand that, then it's going to be difficult to give them the rest of the leverage.
Just from that, on your page where people are taking notes on, we've got our conversation going here. That was great, Jacob. So let me unfold back just a little bit.
Please.
Books. Let me go back to books, and then we'll come forward on this, all the way back up to that iterations of the 80-20. What were some of the early books for you? You might have heard that for me, it went from dinosaurs to King Arthur. That's what kicked me off in my journey. What are some of the books that influenced you that you're like, whether it's an early book or a recent book, that you're like, if someone needs best knowledge, use these books?
Yeah, those are great questions. I mean, I remember like The Hobbit was one of my bedtime stories, right? And so I didn't realize till years later that my dad kind of started me off early, right? Like, I don't know when or where the line was, but instead of reading me The Cat in the Hat, he read me The Hobbit, so to speak.
Jacob, I was just watching all of the trailers last night of all the Lord of the Rings, including The Hobbit, because I didn't have enough time to watch these 3-hour movies. So sometimes I'll watch the trailers just to get the feel of the movie. It's so great you said that.
Yeah. And so I remember that. And then I remember that somewhere by around grade 4, I was taking the Lord of the Rings out of the library myself. It was in my elementary school library. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the things. It's not as much the books as the behavior. I just know that throughout my childhood, my dad especially, like I'd ask a question and quite often he'd be like, oh, you can probably find that in here. Right. And so he taught me to reference, and that even reference books could be fun and that kind of stuff. And that it's okay to kind of look outside yourself for information, ideas, and things. And then between that and my mom being a librarian, like I just kind of got used to books being a constant part of my life. There was a point where I could either go home on the school bus or walk to the library and have that extra hour and a half after school and get a ride home with her after work. And that's what I started doing. And so by the time junior high school rolled around, especially, it was like finish my assignments in class so I could read my books. Because honestly, like school was a little bit boring. And so that's what brought me forward. And the capacity to know that anything that you want is out there and accessible, right? Like I think print itself changed the planet in a way that, you know, the internet obviously did as well. Mm-hmm. And for me, like books are a bit more of a prescription in that way. Like when you know what somebody's looking for, then you can usually find a good fit.
Yeah.
And kind of work backwards from there.
Wow. This is the cool part of you not being in content master mode, where I get to learn about you and hear some of those awesome parts of the journey. You also talked about the accident you had and how purpose and urgency became a catalyst for you to work with an intentionality and deliberateness. How do you still hone in that purpose and urgency in your work now?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. Like today was the monthly training where I do exactly that. Like I do this call once a month. I call it the gift call. And, you know, what I present is the realization that I had with the 100-year plan. That is like, when you help somebody like eliminate pain from their lives, it changes their life, right? They become a different parent, a different partner, a different member of the community, and that kind of stuff. But, you know, there's a reason I still have that company. It's nothing that I'm ever going to give up on. It's part of my retirement project, but it's still kind of a one-to-one. The ripple effect is only so big there, right? Versus with 80/20 media, it's like, wait, there's this exponential power curve, right? Yeah. And so when we work with clients in that space, our top level commitment with clients is, are we going to do this? Yes, great. Let's sit down and reverse engineer how what you're doing is going to impact 25 million lives. Because if you're going to have a goal, you might as well set a big goal and like create a target worth striving towards. Right? It's like that thing you read the books. You know, I personally done it to a very low level, but I spend a lot of time in the mountains. And you talk to anybody who really climbs and you're like, why did you climb it? And they're like, because it was there. Like it was just the next mountain in front of me. And I like the idea of business being that way too. Like, let's cause something significant because it's enough work anyway. You might as well be a little bit audacious.
That's awesome, Jacob. Thank you for that. That is not the theme. It's not the deep water that many experts or authors jump into because they're like, oh, I wrote a book. It's my new calling card. Here, I'm just going to pass it out. And it diminishes everything else you just said right now. It's like, no, this is a catalyst. This is a vehicle for larger impact out in the world. Use it for that. Extraordinary. And I love this line, help people eliminate the pain in their lives, because how they get to now be in their communities, their organizations, are transformed individuals, elevating consciousness, joy, health, well-being.
Yeah. And like you listen to the backstory of any significant author and, you know, they'll tell you how many times their breakthrough or breakout book was rejected. Right. And big numbers,
right?
Double digits for some of them. But
you know, there's this really crappy book for kids that was rejected a number of times. It's like Harry Potter or something like that. They didn't. Right? Then imagine the knucklehead that went, yeah, Miss Riley, I don't think so. It's trite. It's been done before.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
exactly.
again, you point to one person's know or perception of your book is not what the whole world thinks of it. It's just one person.
Yes.
Go make that impact. Okay. You said something here also about purpose and alignment.
Yeah.
What is the alignment for you that 8020.media allows you to deliver in this world? What's that alignment that you're like, this is my vehicle that aligns me to the purpose I have?
Yeah. So I've actually worked on that, and it's gone through 3 major phases. And so, when we first formed, we're like, we can build things and we can create leads. And, we went off and got reasonably successful at doing that in a very short period of time. But through doing it, we failed forward into this space of like, okay, we're fulfilling on this like low level agreement, which, every business needs customers, got that covered. But the leverage in terms of like actually impacting change wasn't quite there. And that's because in the beginning we were eager and just said yes to everyone. So that was a hard learned lesson. And the second time we went through it, we were better at vetting who we worked with and finding out that people who had a higher level of commitment also experienced different challenges and struggled with different things.
Yes.
And it was that second phase where, and I give a lot of credit to the mentors that I work with, where it's like, wait a minute, if we're not responsible for all areas of their life improving, right? Just improving business and finance, A, it's not functional, but B, and this was the most interesting part, it actually thwarts our best intentions. And like, I just keep on trying to simplify things. So now I realize that it's just a table with 4 legs. And if you hire my company and all we do is build one of those table legs taller and taller and taller, all this shit will always slide off the table. So your health and well-being, your environment and relationships with yourself and other people, all those things need to be part of the improvement of it. And this is where we're kind of at odds with the consumer society and the middle class, because we're sold this idea that we go work really hard in this one area and then we'll have access to spend to try and fix the broken stuff in those other areas. And so we don't accept that anymore. That's where the third level of doing business came in, of like, listen, if you're not going to have all these things, then I can't actually help you grow a business that helps you be the change that you need in the world. Right. And like, I don't know if he figured it out or was just bored, but there's that story about Mandela running a marathon every day inside his jail cell. Like, he did not give up on health and well-being while figuring out how to end apartheid. Like, he managed both. Right. He developed.
Wow, I'd never heard that part. I knew, maybe I was thinking of someone else, that every day they cleaned the inside of their I think it was Viktor Frankl.
Yeah.
Talking about how he was fastidious and cleaned his jail cell every day. Exactly. But I didn't know that about Mandela.
There's so many different examples of these people who had an impact because they were balancing the different areas of life in whatever way suited them the best, right? There's no formula. And that's where alignment comes in. Like, alignment is within you. You cannot find it outside of yourself. You can be given a breadcrumb trail by other people, but you have to do the inner work to actually reach it. And, you don't know what it is or how to get there if you're not committed to the process. So for me, our primary distinction in 80/20 media now, the third level thing, like, are you consuming or creating? And we work with creators, and we won't help them create consumption. We'll help them create creation. Right. And so that's it. Our MO is creating, because with that, you can do this thing that I call break the myth of more. Like, I've delivered a business plan that fits on a Post-it note, fills your heart, and breaks 6 figures, which is double the median income of any first world country on the planet.
Wow.
And it's in a 20-hour work week. And that's because I think the likelihood of doing that is way higher than helping somebody become a millionaire or a billionaire. And then when you're in a 20-hour work week, you can put the rest of your time in towards family, community, like all the other things that are a contribution. And you're sold this idea that you should like slave away in the salt mines for 20 years to become a millionaire. And then I'm going to go out and make a difference for people. And it's like, why not start today?
That's epic. That is so great, Jacob. Use the other. I haven't heard it said the way you say. Like you hear Tim Ferriss, hey, the 4-hour work week, the 4-hour work week. But what's not said is, well, maybe I haven't read it because I haven't resonated with Tim yet. Is what do we do with the other 36 hours? Like the way you describe to create that 20-hour work week, so you have these other 20 hours to go be great in your community, great with your family, great where it makes a difference. And it's very aligned with, I think when we shared and I said why I created the Author Launchpad is I'm creating more philanthropists in the world. I want people to go back to their middle schools, their high schools, and follow that chain where they were and give and make a difference. If you see an area out in this world that needs some help, go give your expertise and go make great money so you can give them money too to help them in their journey.
Yeah. And like in the stuff that I do, one of my slides, it's Steve Jobs called it a burning desire. There's just this quote that I use of his, but this idea behind it, I went out and did some research, and a lot of organizations need people as much or more than they need money. Right? They're like, we would take this much money, but we'd actually prefer to have a person in here more often doing something because they're trying to impact people.
That's so great. Okay. Let's move to your zone of mastery and expertise. So you've mentioned the word process a number of times. Very English-like that you have processes. I have processes. But your processes are some of the best I've seen. And you point to a really important part that we're sold the finished product. Come make 6 figures. Come scale. Come down to this. And I know I use the word scale in my program. Actually, I've moved from it now. I used to say package, launch, and scale your expertise. And now I've shifted to, after listening to what more nonfiction authors are needing, is package, market, monetize. That monetization is what they don't know scale because they don't have the processes. So now let's bring it to you. How do you move people through this process?
Yep. So there's 3 really important parts. One of them is that third iteration that I was talking about. Like it came around full circle and there's this complete realization, right? Because I talked about the responsibilities that I learned about our clients' lives in the second round, right? Mm-hmm. So we have a first principle now. Like whoever you are, the proverbial you, if you come over and you're like, help me grow a business, I'm like, great, here's the agreement. Our end goal is you're going to impact 25 million lives, and I'm only going to help you do more of the work you love. Everything else is meant for automation, delegation, and systems. And there's some really specific requirements in that kind of stuff. It's not magical thinking. It's very methodical, and it's all about design. But it requires the alignment. You have to know what you love doing, right? And like this happens all the time. Somebody will hire us. We do 2 processes. You cannot buy part 2 without doing the work of part 1. Why? 50% of the people halfway through part 1, let's use coaching as a model. They get halfway through and they're like, I don't like this one-on-one. I want to do groups.
Right.
Aren't we glad that we figured that out before we built this entire thing around that one offer and only doing it that one way? So that's a really key component. Another piece about it is if you don't have the automations and the SOPs in place, you can't hire. because you don't have things to train people in or hold them accountable to or any of that stuff. And like, I failed forward through this myself of like, we need a VA for what? To do stuff. What stuff? Oh, wait, we have to sit down and like talk to them about what we need done and give them like a repeatable task and a clear description. But we'd have to like stop pushing down the gas on the company long enough to build a system.
Yes.
And one of my mentors like functionally did that for, I think, 15, almost 20 years of his business. And the first step he did walking into these massive companies was help them remove all the people who didn't want to be there. And you got to understand that that's inside you and a part of your business already today, right? And you're resisting growing a business because there's things that you know you either suck at or shouldn't be doing or really dislike. So we need to operate on that stuff as quickly as possible. And that's one of the foundational pieces. And then, you know, what we had in the beginning, we were great at using social media for lead generation, and they would fall off the flat earth. And we'd call the client up and be like, what's going on? And like, oh yeah, our tech guy's going to get that landing page together. And it was like 3 months went by. This is like, no, that's not how it works anymore. So now we do all the back-end technical. We build things that we guarantee work because they're reliable, they're proven. And, you know, fortunately, the supply side of the market in terms of software and those sorts of things have elevated to such a degree where we're just able to hand something over to our clients and be like, this works 100% of the time. It's been custom tailored to your needs. And we've listened to you and removed the things that you're incapable of and shouldn't be doing anyway as a part of the design. Right. And it's one of those things, like, I forget when I learned this, but if you go to buy a supercar, they're like, is this your first Ferrari? Okay, here are the driving lessons.
Exactly.
Right? You're not allowed off the lot as a new driver of Ferrari because they learned this lesson a while ago, like how many people would just smash it within the first 10 minutes because they didn't know how much power 600 horsepower is.
Exactly. It's such a brilliant analogy. I thank you for saying it that way. There's so many people where I've built something for them and they have slow lane mentality and they don't know how to use it. You know, it's just like you say, I want to do group coaching. Okay, great. Have you done 1 to 3 yet? Have you done a 1 to 5 workshop? No, but I want to learn how to do group coaching. All right, you got to go slow lane to middle lane to traveling lane, then to the fast lane. You can't just go from off the freeway onto scale, 100 miles an hour. You will crash into something, you'll implode, and you'll think it was that they didn't want your work when it really was you weren't prepared to do what you needed to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Jacob, one of the most brilliant things that I've heard in a long time, not only are there people in your company who don't want to be there, there's part of you who doesn't want to be there. And that's true. There's a part when I'm doing that heavy lifting, I don't want to be doing some of that heavy lifting. I'd rather be out doing something else. And it doesn't mean we're quitting on our business. It's just the human dynamic that there's things we don't want to do.
Yeah. There's some really important components to that in growing a business as well. One of the first pieces is this understanding. Like, I start off all my consulting calls with a trick question, right? Like, do you want me to double your business? Everybody says yes. If we just use the 80-20 rule, it's like, okay, but there's 20 things you like doing in your business out of the 100 things that have to be done every month. And so if I double that next month, there's 160 things you don't like, and it's my name on your note. Like, you know, 80-20 media did this to me. And you need to be conscious of that kind of stuff when you're designing your business and fix things before there are problems. The other thing is that it's unavoidable. As a business grows, you hit the next glass ceiling each time. They're called bottlenecks. They're a function of a growing business. And if you have the wherewithal, then you can anticipate them. My first Pilates teacher, his dad was a banker.
Wow.
So he opened the studio and then he told me this like 2 or 3 times. He's like, he like went to his dad and he's like, this was what kind of year he had. And his dad handed him his plan. He's like, here's your expansion. Here's your expansion. Why? Because the guy had been a banker for so long that he knew like every time you hit this certain ceiling, this is how you grow.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that kind of mentality is there because whatever business you're in, somebody's done it before.
Yes.
My mentors are up there in their businesses, you know, like they have like weekly calls that have a program that has 500 members. So when I serve my own clients and we're like, let's get you to 25 or 50, it's like, don't worry. I know every single head you're going to smash your forehead into, every low hanging beam between here and there. Why? Like I talk to people every other day about the process of getting there. And they tell me how to fix things before they become your problem. So mentorship is a huge component of this. And then this is another really important piece too, is understanding how to break that myth of more. Because getting to that level may not serve you or the community you're building. And right now, all the scaling that's being sold out there is really about 3% of the market, right? The ad space, the 3% who are buying now, right now, and you have two games there, and they're both losing games. Seth Godin talks about it. He calls it the race to the bottom.
Yeah.
Because the only thing you can do is cheapen your product to underprice yourself. Or Dan Kennedy said the same thing in a different way. Whoever can spend the most on a lead wins. And so if quantity is the only game you're playing and you're not playing quality, and you, Chris, are going to sell your $1,000 thing, and I am going to sell my $1,000 thing, and I'm willing to spend $925 to sell it, and you're only willing to spend $850, I will win every time. And the consumer is the one who loses.
Yeah.
Not about serving them anymore. It's just about ramming out as many widgets as you can.
Yeah. That's so brilliant. I don't think enough people know the behind the curtain of the juggernauts that we're up against in that ad marketing space and how much more skill set they have running those ads and distilling and dialing in. And so when we jump in and we think, oh, I'm going to run some money behind my ad, and we get crickets, or we get the angry people who didn't like that our ad showed up on their feed, and then they say something disparaging, and we're like, well, ads didn't work. It's like, no, you're dealing with, like you said, the 3%, the race to the bottom, whether you're spending more than the other person or trying to beat each other on price, a race to the bottom. Okay, back to your expertise and why someone like myself works with you. You have this brilliant snapshot you have where you create the landing page, the VSL page. What are some of like the core 3 basics? You're like, look, if I could equip people with 1, 2, and 3, and they do these 3 things, maybe there's a couple more or less, you say you could get them X. What's that for you?
So there are a couple rules, right? The first one is, since we're finishing that tail end of ad, let's use this distinction. There's a big distinction between advertising and marketing. For the sake of this conversation, advertising's paid for traffic, right? You're pushing money out there to get people to look at your thing, versus marketing is about relationship and brand. This is a really important lesson, because at the top of every business is a concrete ceiling where they cannot spend any more on ads. We're talking about the biggest brands in the world. Throughout both of our childhoods, they were on commercials every time between every single episode of whatever.
Right.
So brand is the only thing that takes you above that. Right? Being ubiquitous is the answer. So why not start on brand in the beginning? Second part of that rule is we will not help anybody move into advertising until they have a strong enough brand that they can break, in my preference, multiple 6 figures through organic only, organic marketing only. And so that is the thing that, you know, people like Gary Vee have been shouting about for 15 years now. Like, You have your own TV station. It's entirely free. Like, this is the truth. Social media has opened this door to us, and we have a massive opportunity if you treat it like a business. And that means being actually respectful of your audience while being respectful of your brand. There's a real relationship there.
Yes.
That's super important. Once you have those things in place, or if you need them in place, we handle that first. And you need an offer. Most people don't. You ask what an offer is, and they'll speak for 5 minutes about their credentials, their CV to you, like talk about their self-interest and what they journaled about that morning. But really, it should be like, I helped this person get this result in this time. Like the 100-year plan, it's permanent pain relief, guaranteed, or your money back. It's for someone in pain.
Yeah.
Done, right? Like 80/20 media, like we sell the call. I guarantee you'll get a 6-figure business plan. It fits on a Post-it note. The math is that simple. It fills your heart and it's free. That's the consulting call. And that's the offer for it. Once you have that in place, then you can back it with digital assets, with content, with all sorts of stuff. And there's different types of content you need to put out to build that relationship. There's brand content. There's, I call it conversion, which is like teach them to think. And then there's offer content. And the main thing anybody should be doing in this like proverbial discussion that we're looking at, like it should be prescribed, but in a generalization, you should be selling the call. You should be talking to as many people as you possibly can to figure out what their actual pain is and how you can help them solve it. And it better be something that you're an expert at, right? Inside your zone of genius as your niche. And that's one of the most important things is focusing on that niche instead of just trying to be way too broad and too spread out, because you're going to get a lot of the wrong answers in the wrong conversations. And so you win the game through specificity. When you have that stuff, whether I'm doing it for you or you're doing it yourself, you can put out content that drives traffic to a call booking thing. During those calls, you can actually develop a human-to-human relationship, find out what they actually need, and prescribe the best fit to them. And that all kind of fits vertically inside of the work that we do with our clients. It's why we have a two-parter. Like, I'll generally take on somebody new-ish and get them their first 5 to 10 clients with something I build for them. The build is 30 days or less. We kind of guarantee this turnaround in 90 days of like, you're going to make your money back. And a lot of people are like, well, why aren't you growing something bigger? And it's like, because those 10 sales you're going to get that more than return your investment don't matter. That's for you. For your business, the 40 people that didn't buy, right? Out of these 50 calls, 40 people didn't buy, you should write them a check because it's paid market research. They'll tell you what they need, what's missing from your offer, how to dial things in, and how to add multiple income streams to your business in the next 90 days.
Wow.
And those are the two components we use to actually put together this thing. Once we built it, we guarantee a 6-figure return on it. But that's because in my consulting call, I'll draw out a map that breaks multiple 6 figures in 20 minutes. So it just kind of works.
Right there, Jacob, like in this past 5 minutes, you just gave the blueprint that people are listening for, looking for, asking, how do I do it? And if you're watching this replay, I'm going to clip this out and say, watch this past part where Jacob describes what you need to do. And really, thank you for stressing the point about being organic, because so many people come up and like, should I run ads? Where should I run ads? How do I build an ad? No.
Yeah.
Get into conversation. Listen to what they want. Listen for what they're saying they are needing. They don't know what they need, right? Sell them what they want, give them what they need, and work there. Build that muscle there in the organic domain first. That was awesome.
Ads require two things: a proven offer and a refined sales process. Like, that's it. And that's why, you shouldn't run that stuff out of the gate, because you're just going to burn money for the first, 90 days or so figuring that out. Any agency will tell you that their onboarding time is 60 to 90 days before they're like, expect a result, because they know this is part of the game and how you win it. That's unavoidable if you don't do the organic work up front and put those pieces in place.
Wow. Excellent. Okay, Jacob, as we get closer to our final descent, any other action items, anything you want to screen share, anything else you want to tell the audience about you? Because I'm going to repurpose the heck out of this so that people know about who you are and what you do and the commitment you have behind helping them get their work in the world. That's why you and I parallel each other so well. We just have different ways of using our expertise to get people out in this world. But for you, anything else we haven't touched on yet that you want to share, or how can people find you, and or both?
Okay. So you mentioned the word blueprint earlier, and that's what it is. We call it the regenerative business blueprint because it is a blueprint to get you this six-figure foundation, grow from there, all that stuff. But the regenerative side is it's about working on the soil. You have to have a really good life that makes other lives really good, or this thing isn't going to produce, something worth harvesting. And so that mentality and practice, like we use the word grow for businesses because we mean that literally. And so it's about doing the inner work first and making sure that all that stuff that happens below the ground produces the rest of the results. And I think that's one of the discrepancies out there of how things are missed or ignored. And you can't step over that, in my opinion. It's part of like how we're going to put things back into balance, whether it's an individual, small group, or again, changing 25 million lives. All these things hold true. It's the same thing. And that's part of what I call the ripple effect and how I operate in the world. And so, yeah, the blueprint is a literal thing. But again, you've got to have that whole two sides of the yin yang. And a lot of people are like, you see the black and the white, you forget the dots inside them. Right? There's
very good.
Black in the white, and it's this swirling of the two together that makes it really happen. So that's really like the deeper side of our first principle into practice, and why we're only going to help you do things that you love and help you build a life that you don't need to escape from. And your business should feel like that. It should feel like, I don't need a vacation from this thing. It's serving my best life. It's hard enough to build one anyway. You might as well be building that. And so that's really what I have to say about it. Call.8020.media is whatever our most recent VSL is to book a call with me and talk to me at any time about this stuff. And the offer that's on the front of it changes, but the foundation of what we do is always the same: alignment and business. And be the change.
Alignment and business. And let me make sure. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this clip, call.8020.media.com.
Nope.
Right? Nope. Okay.
Nope.
Call.8020.media is how you could get a hold of Jacob and start this conversation about what does your blueprint to 100,000, what does your 100-year plan maybe look like? Like, take that expertise, build it on the processes and systems that Jacob's talking about. And trust me, if I know I need to put you in front of Jacob, I'm going to put you in front of Jacob. If Jacob knows there might be a piece missing that I could help you with, we're going to work together like two coaches to get you where you need to be. But hands down, you heard that expertise. You heard the promise that Jacob gives. An alignment in business. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think you're one of those best kept secret out there, but you like it like that. That's why you're visiting 30 countries at a time and you're not, bogged down with all this other stuff. So really doing a great job, Jacob. Anything else you'd like to say? I think you said it right there. Make a difference.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right, ladies and gentlemen, from Southern California all the way up to Canada. Which city again in Canada?
I'm kind of in the middle of nowhere now. I live 40 minutes away from a ski hill in the Okanagan. And I mean, I guess this town was incorporated as a city in like 1880 something, but there's 3,500 people here. It's called Enderby Ray.
All that so you could ski all the summits that you want to ski in that 80% of free time you've created in your life.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's epic, Jacob. You've done an extraordinary job. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. You are going to see this out in many different places, and I will make sure that you have access to Jacob McGill. I can't thank you enough for sharing your time, your listening with us, and please reach out to us. With that, I'm going to go ahead and click on end stream and wave bye. Bye for now.